My name is Anicia Roberts. I'm the online video technician and court reporter today, representing Milestone Reporting Company located at 315 East Robertson Street, Suite 510, Orlando, Florida 32801. Today is the second day of October 2024. The time is 10:04 a.m. We are convened by video conference to take the deposition of, in the matter of Walter E. Sahm and Patricia Sahm versus Bernstein Family Realty, LLC, Brian O'Connell as successor personal representative of the estate of Simon L. Bernstein, Michael Bernstein, Molly Simon, Pamela
Excuse me,
Lee.
excuse me, you can just say et al.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay, thank you. Et al. Pending in the Circuit Court of Palm Beach County, Florida. Case number 2018 CA 002317. While everyone but the witness, please state your appearance, how you're attending, and location you're attending from, starting with plaintiff's counsel.
yes, Robert Sweetapple and Cynthia Miller on behalf of the guardian, Charles Revard.
Good morning, Catherine Lewis on behalf of the Guardian, Charles Revard. I'm attending from my home in Palm Beach County, Florida. I am counsel of record in a related guardianship matter, so I will be just observing, not participating today.
And I assume Mr. Sweetapple is appearing from his office?
Yes,
Okay, just because she asked. Okay, Ingrid Garcia, I'm here with Mr. Eliot Bernstein from my home office.
Mr. Bernstein, will you please state your full name for the record and hold your ID up to the camera, please?
Eliot Ivan Bernstein.
A little bit closer. Right there. Okay, that's perfect. I can see your name in you. Thank you. Do all parties agree that the witness is in fact Mr. Bernstein?
yes,
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Bernstein, will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin.
good morning, Mr. Bernstein. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Have you ever been deposed before?
I have.
On how many occasions?
One, I think.
All right, and when was that?
That was a few years ago with your friend Alan Rhodes.
Okay, and have you ever testified at a trial before?
Trial?
Or any court proceeding?
Oh, yes,
How many times have you testified in court proceedings?
numerous. I'm involved in numerous cases, and I've represented myself pro se.
Okay, so more than a dozen times you've
Oh,
testified?
yeah, yeah,
More than 50 times?
probably. Maybe
Okay.
100 or so.
Okay, so you're familiar with testifying.
I am.
You've been placed under oath repeatedly.
Correct.
Okay,
Oh, no, not under oath, meaning I've talked to the court pro se. So if
right.
that's testifying, I haven't been sworn in, but maybe 10 times.
Okay, so basically, as you may remember from Mr. Rose's deposition, I'm going to ask you questions that you're expected to answer if you know the answer under oath. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. And it's quite possible that you're not going to understand my question because it's complicated, confused, unintelligible. Just tell me that you don't understand my question and I will rephrase it. Is that understood?
It is.
All right. And we don't want you to speculate or guess. If you don't know the answer, tell me you don't know the answer. Is that fair?
Sure.
Is there any reason you're unable to give a deposition here today? Are you on medication, doctor's care?
I am on medication. I am in doctor's care. My blood pressure is 230 over 150 this morning. And I'm on heavy medication pending a 2-year delay in an open heart surgery for 4 arteries that are clogged. The medicine does make me a little bit rough around the edges on dates, but everything else I'm pretty clear about.
Okay. So
Okay. Yeah.
with regard to your condition, if at any time you need to stop and take a break, please let me know
Years ago.
and we'll break. Okay. I'm just saying if
Yeah,
it's
no.
too stressful or if you need to use the facilities or just let me know. This is not intended to be a painful experience. It's a search for the truth, essentially, regarding this case. So, what is your educational background?
Well, before we get started under Rule 1310, I just want to clarify with you that the deposition is in good faith and whatnot. And I wanted to find out.
You're not here to ask me questions, and
no, but under 1310, I can ask the officer conducting the deposition, which I think is you, if it's being conducted fairly. So the first question I have is, were you contacted by the Palm Beach County Sheriff regarding claims against you for criminal misconduct?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I'm here to ask to take your deposition. It's in good faith. I'm doing it in good faith.
You want me to it comes under Florida 1310.
Sir, Mr. Bernstein, I'm going to start asking you questions. If you don't answer them, I will suspend the deposition and go to the court and seek sanction.
Okay, good.
The deposition,
I'm telling you, that's your right to do that, and I accept that. But if you read the rule, I have the right to tell the court why I'm feeling this is not a good faith deposition, which I'm telling you because you're under a criminal investigation or several, and you're aware of that, and therefore I think your objective is not to get to the truth, but try to frame people for crimes or something, or make up some fraud that you haven't exposed to anybody what the fraud you're claiming is. But more importantly, this deposition is being used as a fishing for you to find out who's investigating you, who we've talked to, etc. And I think it's wholly bad faith what you're doing and how broad and all that. So I do want you to take it up with the judge. And I do have 2 exhibits I'd like you to give to the judge to review if you're taking it to him. And the first one,
are you done making your statement?
Submitted.
Are you done making?
No, I'd like to state on the record for the judge to review on 3/31/20. This is from the Palm Beach County Sheriff report. I'm sure you got a copy of that. On 3/31/2023, I contacted trust attorney Robert Sweetapple, who's listed as the attorney of record for the plaintiff in this case involving the Bernstein Family Trust. Mr. Sweetapple respectfully declined to discuss the details of the case and stated that Mr. Bernstein or his legal representatives had previously raised all of their objections in court, and their appeals were denied based on the evidence.
Mr. Bernstein, any records you want to append to this deposition for the court, we will do at the end of the deposition. Now I'm going to commence with your questioning, sir.
Well, if you're ending it to go get an order from the judge.
No, I'm going to. If you're not,
Ms. Garcia, are you going to make any attempt in good faith to control your client, or should we just end this little song and dance?
Well, you're also in the complaint.
I'm aware.
The county sheriff, I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you guys are doing this in good faith. You shouldn't be doing this. You should both be represented by counsel at this point.
Mr. Bernstein, Mr. Bernstein.
5-minute break, please, sir. 5-minute break.
Thank you. I please understand, we're not going off the record. Understand that Mr. Bernstein has been sanctioned by courts for this very type of conduct, and I will be seeking to strike pleadings and to hold him in contempt of court.
The deposition hasn't started yet, sir. I'm asking for a 5-minute break because you're.
Yes, it has started. The deposition has started, and I'm going to suspend it for 5 minutes. And if this type of outrageous conduct continues, I will be suspending and contacting the court immediately. And this abuse of the litigation system has got to end, ma'am.
Okay, the time is 10:13 a.m. and we are off record. The time is 10:20 a.m. and we are back on record.
Mr. Bernstein, I was asking you, what is your educational background?
I'm a college graduate.
And where did you go?
University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay, my son went there.
Yes.
And when did you graduate?
1983 or so.
You did graduate?
Yeah,
And what did you get
psychology.
psychology? Okay. And did you ever practice as a psychologist?
No.
Okay. What type of work did you pursue after you graduated?
Well, I was in the insurance business since I was 14 years old at that point. I
Okay.
had my own company in college, and I worked full time and went to college full time.
Okay. And how long were you in the insurance industry?
Wow. I don't know, 30 plus years.
Are you still in the insurance industry?
I am not.
Okay. And what was your relationship with the Bernstein Family Realty LLC when it entered into a note and mortgage with the Sahms?
Nothing other than that I was taking care of the property that my kids owned through Bernstein Family Realty. And it was a life estate my father set up so that our family was protected by some bad attorneys we were exposing in federal and state courts, similar to what's going on with you right now.
So you were never a member or an owner of any interest in Bernstein Family Realty?
Well, I was later when it was necessary.
So, but I'm talking about the time that the note and mortgage was signed. You were not a member at that time?
No.
Okay.
And that was
And
to protect our lives.
okay. But you were living in the
Property.
home. You were living in the home that was owned by Bernstein Family Realty LLC.
Which is owned by my 3 children who were minors at the time. So yeah, we were living there,
Okay.
raising them, and that was my dad's intent, was to make with Walt, even knew all about it, was to make the property secure because I was in litigation against lawyers, judges, and a whole bunch of.
How many judges have you been in litigation against?
Objection to relevance.
A lot, but there was also a bomb in our car, which blew up 3 cars next to it. And it's a very complicated situation, but my dad was trying to protect my family from lawyers and others who were trying to kill me to steal trillion-dollar patents, so to speak.
So how many judges have you litigated against?
I don't know. You can look it up. It was the Southern District of New York case that was related to a whistleblower from the disciplinary department of New York. And it's a RICO, so it named quite a lot of lawyers and judges.
And what about in Florida? How many Florida judges have you sued?
Objection to the relevance. We're here on limited issues of the settlement, and you're going back to history of years ago. Go ahead.
I don't mind. A bunch. Jorge Labarga, who was at the 15th, which it kind of makes it why the 15th is not a good place to be hearing anything of mine. But then several Supreme Court members, the Florida bar I sued, and whatnot, a whole lot of people.
Have you sued any other judges in the 15th Judicial Circuit or
Again,
moved to recuse any other judges?
Again, objection to relevance. We're here for the settlement issues only.
Excuse me, Ms. Garcia. Please just object to form. Relevance isn't even a proper objection at a deposition.
In this particular deposition, sir, because it's limited to the settlement issues, I have a right to limit the scope of this deposition, or then you can take it up with the judge. Go ahead.
No, you can make an instruction to your client that you believe is appropriate, but relevance is not an objection. I'm getting background on the witness right now to go to his credibility. I'm entitled to do that as a matter of law. So how many other judges have you sued in Palm Beach County?
None.
How many of you moved to recuse?
Quite a few.
Okay. And they
were recused or disqualified, and immediately after, most of them retired early off the bench, getting rid of what I would say was kind of a cultish group of judges who were using predatory guardianships to steal people's estates. And so that group of judges is gone. And then I think that's about it. That's the only, you can look the records up. They're Palm Beach County. I moved to recuse any judge that's not following the rules.
Okay, and who was in terms of
Oh,
the
and by the way, though, you should also know that I've been pursuing quite a few attorneys like Alan Rose, yourself, etc. And Don Tesher and Robert Spalina were arrested, not directly related to my complaint, but insider trading. And they also admitted to forging my mother's trust document in my mother's trust case to the Palm Beach sheriff when questioned. Mr. Spalina did. And then I think Brian O'Connell also recently has destroyed his career, was disbarred for stealing $500,000, according to the Florida Supreme Court, out of a client's trust account. Will he be criminally prosecuted? We'll see. It takes time, as you know, as we build a web around you. So, but go ahead. Yeah. Any other question?
Do you remember my question, Mr. Bernstein?
Yeah. What judges had I been pursuing and others?
Mm-hmm. And was your question intended to be responsive to that?
Yeah.
I asked judges, and you started talking about all the lawyers.
Yeah, I thought it meant what other people
so were you,
in the legal profession.
And so do you have a power of attorney from Bernstein Family Realty, LLC to act on its behalf?
I was voted in as a manager.
Okay, when were you voted in as a manager?
I believe in 2023. Like I said, I'm not real good on dates. You want me to look it up? I'll get it later.
And was the entity reinstated with the Secretary of State at or about that time?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you are the manager currently of the entity?
One of.
How many other managers are there?
Two.
Who are they?
My wife and Kevin Hall.
Okay. And who is Kevin Hall?
He's a consultant, business consultant.
Okay. And do you have any? Do you or Bernstein Family Realty LLC have any contracts with him?
I'm not sure. I can check.
Do you have any agreements with him to compensate him?
I'm not sure what's there at this time.
Is he working for free for the company?
He may be.
Do you know?
I don't.
You don't know that there's a signed agreement to pay him a percentage or compensate him in any way with regard to...
I think he has some kind of agreement, maybe verbal with my kids and whatnot. I'm not exactly sure. That's why I said I'm not.
When you say your kids, are your kids managers or members?
They're the members.
Okay. And who are the members?
Joshua Ennio Xander Bernstein, Jacob Noah Archie Bernstein, and Daniel Elijah A.B. Adamo Bernstein.
Okay. And the property that is operated or owned by the Bernstein Family Realty LLC has the company, when I say the company, I'm referring to Bernstein Family Realty LLC, paid the property taxes on that property at any time in the last 10 years?
The last 10 years, I'm not sure. I don't know. They have paid the property taxes.
What years?
I'd have to check.
Okay. And what about in the last 5 years?
I believe so.
And who would handle that as a manager? You, your wife, or Mr. Hall?
Objection, you're going beyond the scope of the settlement issue. Go ahead.
Should I answer?
Go ahead.
Okay. What was the question again? Sorry.
That who in the LLC is responsible for conducting its affairs, such as making payments like property tax?
That would be me and my wife, probably.
Okay.
I mean, there'd be other people involved in the discussion.
Okay. And who would be in? Who was anyone involved from Bernstein Family Realty LLC in first trying to negotiate or prepare draft settlement agreement of this case?
Which settlement?
What's the? I want to know the first time there was ever any draft of a proposed settlement agreement.
The first settlement?
Yeah, who prepared the first draft of a settlement
I
agreement?
believe that would be my attorney, Inger Garcia and John Raymond.
Inger Garcia and John Ring are the first ones that tried to draft a settlement agreement?
Correct.
And when was that?
They not only drafted it, my family signed it. And then I believe because of your frauds that the estate had somehow become a party. My attorney wasted a lot of her time, and John Raymond ate up a lot of attorney fees, I believe, trying to settle this. And we thought that the estate of Walter, which was substituted into the bankruptcy, also fraudulently, were parties to this foreclosure. Well, Inger and John, who I believe one of these people, one of your co-counsels maybe, belongs to his firm, they went through all these steps of negotiating a settlement only for John Raymond to come back after the terms were done. My family had signed it. We were waiting for the Sahm approval. And he said, no, the estate has no interest in this foreclosure, which is strange because Brad Schraber, who I'm sure you know, told the federal bankruptcy court falsely that Walter Sahm's estate did have an interest. And Inger wasted a lot of her time, months, long before you ever filed your predatory guardianship that's been filed by, I believe, Catherine Lewis's firm, to silence Patricia Sahm, which has been effective of silencing a witness against you because she claims she didn't know you, never met you. You've seen her statements. You know, we wasted all this time negotiating with the wrong people. In fact, we were unable to have the proper parties in the state court before the state court because you were running a dead man there who had been dead for a long time. You failed to substitute. And then you were representing Patricia Sahm, even though you actually weren't. You don't know her or ever have talked to her really. And we'll be requesting your records to prove that out at some point. But the bottom line is you were committing a fraud in the state court because Joanna Sahm was your client, not Patricia. And now, only now, months, years later, we're learning because you're busted that there was a power of attorney. And I just read something where you didn't even have the power of attorney you were acting under. So the proper parties to settle were never before the state court from the day Walt died to the day you and your partner, Joanna, concocted this fraud to hide the real litigants in the case. So it wasn't until bankruptcy where you suddenly they switched the parties in the case because Brad Schraber got caught representing a dead person in court almost a year or so after he'd been dead. He filed his notice of appearance for a dead person, kind of like you running that same fraud on the state court. So, you know, that's pretty much my answer to that.
Do you remember my question, sir?
Oh, can you repeat it back?
Do you remember it?
Can you repeat it back?
What question were you answering?
Well, I just want to make sure it's the
What question were you answering, sir?
it's something about BFR's payments and whatnot. Oh, the settlement. Yeah.
Who prepared the first draft of a settlement,
Right.
of a proposed settlement agreement? Who was that?
Right. And I was answering that it was the proposed settlement between John Raymond and Inger, which was based on a fraud that you had committed, leading us to believe that the estate.
Mr. Bernstein, I asked you for the name of someone. You gave me a name and you gave me a speech. So Miss Garcia prepared the first draft of a settlement agreement.
Objection. Are you talking about the settlement agreement issue now or the prior settlements prior to me?
The first draft of a settlement agreement.
in this case. Back with Mr. Moorberger and Leslie and everybody else.
Whatever, I don't know who it is.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, and even earlier in 2019, Walt and I believe their former attorney, who's supposed to be an outstanding guy, John Capeller, who Miss Sahm recognized instantly when we gave her handwritten settlement with us in 2019, which covered all her costs, taxes, insurance, everything to that point for $200,000.
Was that ever executed? Was that ever executed?
It was executed between us, yeah.
Who signed it?
John Capeller or Walton Pat wrote it, and it's in her handwriting. I submitted it as part of my evidence.
Okay, so you believe there was a settlement agreement in 2019?
Correct.
And have any of your attorneys ever sought to enforce that agreement in any court?
No.
Okay. And then the next time,
actually, what was being sought, just so you know, was $200,000, which was sitting in the registry for my kids. Now, we are not responsible for paying off the BFR debt. That was supposed to come out of the estates and trust. But since Alan Rose knows that he's being hunted down, so to speak, by state and federal criminal authorities, he's been trying to force a foreclosure by the Sahms by not letting me get the money out of my children's registry funds to pay the Sahms. So that's caused a whole bunch of delays, even in getting this money to pay off this settlement. He wants to oppose when he's also acting as trustee for my children in a trust that's never been produced and doesn't exist. But we'll get into that if you like.
Mr. Bernstein, I'm trying to take discovery with regard to settlements.
Okay, that was a settlement.
Okay, yeah, I asked you if the 2019 settlement agreement that you claim existed was ever sought to be enforced in court, and you said yes. No. You said no, it has not been enforced. Right.
I think I changed it to yes. I was trying to get the money to achieve the settlement terms.
Was ever a motion filed to enforce that alleged settlement?
Well, I can't enforce it if I have none.
Okay. And the next time that there was any effort to draft what you claim was a settlement agreement, when was that?
That was the one with Inger and Raymond.
Okay. And Inger prepared a settlement agreement indicating that Walter Sahm's estate was a party?
Correct, because that's what you told the bankruptcy court.
Okay.
And Joanna Sahm illegally came in representing the estate of Walter.
Are you aware that there was never any substitution of Walter Sahm estate in the foreclosure case?
I am.
Okay. And are you aware that there was never a suggestion of death to substitute Walter Sahm out of the
no,
case?
I made a suggestion of death and my wife did.
Sorry, let him finish his questions because the court reporter needs to take it down. Delay for a moment when he asks the question so I have a chance to object.
You got it.
Thank you.
So did you? So you're saying that there was a settlement agreement prepared where the party was Walter Sahm estate.
Correct. As one of the parties.
Even though the Walter Sahm estate was never a plaintiff in the foreclosure case.
Well, it became a plaintiff in the bankruptcy case, which the underlying matter of the foreclosure. So they claimed they had an interest in the state case through Walter Sahm. And by the way, your question was, did the suggestion of death was filed? And you have failed and have been representing a client, I think even to this day, without notifying the court that he's dead, which could void your judgment for your clients instantly. We'll get to all those issues. But the honest to God truth is, we left with Joanna Sahm coming into to a bankruptcy, saying she represented the interest of Walter Sam's estate, and for the first time, we learned that she was representing her mother through some kind of power of attorney or pre-need guardian. Of course, she never filed that as legally required. But okay, that is my answer to that.
Okay, so your attorney, Miss Garcia, prepared a draft settlement agreement for the foreclosure case, and the alleged plaintiff was the Walter Sahm estate.
Correct.
Okay, even though
Patricia Sahm, of course, I don't know if we knew at that point that it was Joanna forging all her mother's documents, and you were concealing all that from the state court.
Sir, it was clear from the probate file. I'm strike that from the litigation file in the foreclosure. It was clear that no estate of Walter Sahm was substituted. Correct.
Correct, but we learned at the bankruptcy after the foreclosure case, while the foreclosure was still pending, we learned that Joanna was now representing the interest in the foreclosure case in the judgment as a PR of an estate of Walter.
Well, where did
you got so many frauds going?
Where did Joanna Sahm ever appear
in a bankruptcy
in the foreclosure case?
She didn't, because you concealed her, but she admits even in her affidavit in the guardianship case, her own affidavit, that she was stunned that her mother knew anything about the foreclosure case because she was handling it.
And didn't she have a power of attorney, sir?
You never presented it to the court. She never signed a document. Nobody knew it till the bankruptcy case, where your frauds were coming undone and they had to change everything. So suddenly we found out who the real plaintiffs in the Sahm case were. Not dead Walter, that's for sure. It was Joanna, so I guess, acting as PR without telling anybody, and not Patricia Sahm. She knew nothing about the case, according to Joanna. And I think some of your recent comments show that you really don't know her. And I'm sure that's because the police might be closing in on you, and you're aware of that since they contacted you, which I believe makes the basis of this deposition, you trying to fish yourself out of some real serious charges here. You ran a fraud. Did you expose to the court that you were acting under a power of attorney for Patricia Sahm?
Mr. Bernstein,
no, did you?
Sir, Mr. Bernstein, I'm asking the questions, and
you're answering them. But that's why
Mr. Bernstein, you appear to think, sir, you appear to think that you have to notify the court when you're acting under a power of attorney. So you go ahead and keep thinking whatever you think you know about the law, okay?
You do.
I'm asking you questions, all right?
Right, so, you do.
So what you're telling me is that Miss Garcia and you were aware at the bankruptcy court that Mr. Sahm had died, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you file a suggestion of death at that time?
No, I had filed it earlier in the state court.
Okay.
You failed.
Okay. And after you filed the suggestion of death, and after you filed the suggestion of death, do you know what happens as a matter of law if there's no substitution?
No, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not.
Okay. So you're not aware of what happens at that point.
I have my opinion.
So Miss Garcia was fully aware that there was a suggestion of death, and aware that the only remaining plaintiff on a joint obligation was Patricia Sahm. And did Miss Garcia contact me to negotiate the settlement of the foreclosure case, to your knowledge?
Go ahead.
I think that's attorney-client privilege, but
no, go ahead.
Okay, what was the question?
Did you direct, or anyone from Bernstein Family Realty LLC direct Miss Garcia to communicate with me as attorney for Patricia Sahm to settle the foreclosure case?
I think she did contact you during the John Raymond settlement, but then, as you know, Patricia Sahm Sr.,
I
when
asked
she
you a question, sir. Did you
For that one.
instruct her to contact me to handle a settlement of the foreclosure case?
Objection calls for attorney-client privilege in our private conversations. You know you were part of the email chain, sir, so do not ask him about our conversations. If you have a question about attorney-client privilege, the judge can determine if the answer must be had. So you can ask his knowledge, but do not use this deposition to try to set me up and get around the attorney-client privilege. Ask your
Please
question.
mark this.
Again,
Please
further
mark.
bad
Please mark that in the record.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going to the judge immediately.
take it up with the judge.
Okay, I am asking the witness if he told you something to tell to me that is not privileged. You made a speaking objection. You never instructed him not to answer, which would be the proper thing to do if you actually don't understand that that's not a privileged communication. I'm going to try it again, Miss Garcia. Mr. Bernstein, did you ever instruct Miss Garcia at the time that she prepared a proposed settlement agreement with the estate of Walter Sahm to contact me to attempt to negotiate that settlement?
No.
Why not?
What? I didn't hear you. You broke up.
Why not? Didn't you know I represented the Patricia Sahm in the foreclosure?
Because I don't tell my attorney what to do, like I don't tell my brain surgeon what to do.
Okay.
She's an attorney. She knows what she's doing.
Okay.
She
So
went to
she
the
knows what
party.
she's doing. She knows
Correct.
what she's doing, but she has prepared a proposed settlement of a case where she knows Walter Sahm is dead, and it's a joint obligation, and the estate of Walter Sahm doesn't appear anywhere in the foreclosure case, and she's doing a settlement with the estate of Walter Sahm. Is that what you're telling me? That's what happened?
I'm going to object to him not to answer. Attorney-client privilege communications, take it up with the judge. You're not going to use this deposition to set me up, sir. Go ahead, mark it for the judge. You have a question of his knowledge and his communications and what he understands, fine. But you're not going to use this deposition like this. Go
Stop
ahead.
making speaking objections. Make an objection and state the basis of your form objection if you have a basis of a form objection. Were you aware that, did strike that? So what this proposed settlement with the estate of Walter Sahm, that include the estate of Walter Sahm, are you aware if a proposed settlement agreement was forwarded by Ms. Garcia to any lawyers?
Yeah, John Raymond.
Okay. And
you.
And was that settlement?
And you were sent that settlement, even though you've testified, I believe, under oath, that she didn't contact you about the settlements. You knew damn well of that settlement because I saw your name on it. And you were asked several times to do things regarding the settlement, and you chose to ignore it because this isn't about a settlement. This is about the fact that you're using a predatory guardianship to silence Patricia Sahm from testifying that she doesn't know you. You never talked to her. You never brought her settlement offers. Nothing. That you were working under an undisclosed to the court or any party, a power of attorney that you claimed way later, just not too long ago, that you didn't have the power of attorney in your possession. So you were representing Joanna Sahm, who hired you. Miss Sahm couldn't pick you out of a lineup, but she might now.
Okay. Mr. Bernstein.
Yes, sir.
There was no guardianship of Patricia Sahm at the time that Miss Garcia prepared the settlement with the Walter, right?
The first settlement.
Right. There was no
guardianship. We'll get it to the second.
So all your testimony about the first settlement and mentioning guardianship is in error, right?
I gotta
Objection to the form.
Yeah, no, I would.
No.
I'm not sure. I'll.
Objection to the form. You can answer if you know. Don't
I don't
speculate.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you admit that there was a power of attorney in effect at the time of that attempted settlement agreement, correct?
I think it might have been revoked.
It was revoked at the time that Miss Garcia was preparing and attempting to get a settlement with the estate of Walter Sahm signed.
Objection to the form.
I'm going to have to check, but
Are you speaking about March 2023?
I don't know the date yet.
Speaking about which one during March 2023? The estate one, the pat one? There's many settlements, so you need to be specific.
The settlement.
Show him the settlement, please, that you're discussing before he answers any more questions. Put it on the screen so you can see which settlement, which date you're talking about.
The only settlements I'm talking about and I'm trying to learn about
we're copied on it.
Please let me finish. Okay. I'm talking now about only settlements and draft settlements and negotiations concerning settlement of the foreclosure case. Is that understood?
Yeah, let me check my notes here.
And Robert, you do realize that there's many drafts. Some included the estate, some included Pat Sahm. Joanna was involved in every one of them. You were copied on some of the emails. So you have to be clearer because you can't corner him with trick questions.
Okay.
If you have a particular draft, please put it on the screen.
Okay.
I sent you many drafts.
I'm moving to hold you in contempt for continuing to make speaking objections and coaching your client on what to say. You just gave him a whole narrative with regard to my questioning. It's unprofessional, it's outrageous, and it needs to stop now.
Take it up with the judge.
I am going to do that, Mr. Bernstein.
Okay, so you want to stop the term now?
No.
Stop.
No.
Robert, I'm just asking you, if there's many forms of the settlement, please put the one you're discussing. You can't ask a general question.
Miss Garcia,
Sir, and put up the evidence on the screen and let him see which
Miss Garcia, make your objections. I will take the deposition the way I deem appropriate.
Go ahead. Have fun, Robert.
And she'll object the way she deems appropriate.
Now go ahead.
And if you find something wrong, take it up with the judge. This bullying of people, and I just saw a letter from Leslie Kruger. He goes to you, the other attorney you bullied. You're misogynistic. You abuse women. It's obvious. You just are going to attack her and threaten her with saying, because you're trying to use this to get sanctions or create some fraud that nobody but your mind is involved in, because you're worried that the police are investigating your prior frauds and you know you've committed them.
Okay, let me ask. Go ahead. I will make simple objections. Let him go. Go ahead, Mr. Sweetapple.
Thank you. So when I'm only now talking about the time period that Ms. Garcia was negotiating what you told me was the first draft after the 2019 settlement agreement you say existed. You've told me that Ms. Garcia was negotiating a first draft and had prepared a first draft of a settlement of the foreclosure case. And the party, the Sahm party, included the Walter Sahm estate. Are we clear? That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I'm just looking to see when the first power of attorney.
That question's not pending here. Okay.
Let him ask his question. Go ahead.
I heard his question.
No question pending, is there?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Who negotiated? Were there any? Were you involved in any negotiations regarding that settlement agreement?
Just with my attorney.
Okay. Did you ever speak with Patricia Sahm Jr.?
Not at that juncture. No.
You hadn't spoken to her at all at that juncture?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And I take it that draft of a settlement agreement regarding where it mentioned Walter Sahm trust never was executed, correct? By Mrs. Sahm or by Patricia Sahm as a power of attorney?
No.
Correct. It was not executed ever, right?
Correct. It was not.
And was another draft of a settlement agreement prepared by Ms. Garcia after that, to your knowledge, that did not list the estate of Walter Sahm as a party?
Yeah, right after John Raymond confirmed that Joanna had misrepresented to a federal bankruptcy court that the estate of Walter Sahm had an interest in the foreclosure case and therefore bankruptcy. Yeah,
Excuse me, is that the case that your attorney, Miss Garcia, was sanctioned by the court?
Objection to the form. I was never sanctioned. Number one.
And your
Number two,
You see,
your children were she was identified by the court as having engaged in wrongdoing?
I don't know what that means. I'm not a legal expert.
Okay,
That's your word, not mine.
All right.
Take her position next, I think.
So you understand there was another draft of a settlement agreement prepared by Miss Garcia concerning the foreclosure.
Right. Like I was saying, John Raymond.
Let me finish my question, sir. Sir, can I finish my question?
I'm finishing your last question.
Can I finish my question, sir?
Well, I'm finishing the answer to my
Sir, you've already answered the last question.
No, I didn't. You interrupted.
What was the question you're now finishing your answer to?
I don't know. Can you have the court reporter read it back?
No, because you've already finished it. I'm asking you a new question, sir.
Well, I wasn't finished answering the old one, but okay.
Okay, so then what question weren't you finished answering?
I wasn't finished answering about the next settlement that Inger was going to do, and I was explaining that.
I haven't finished the question about that. I want to know whether or not.
What was your last question?
I asked you if you were involved in negotiating that second draft that didn't involve Walter Sahm with Patricia Sahm Jr., and you said you don't believe you were at that time. Okay.
That was your last question. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm trying to follow up on. Okay. Now, were you aware at the time that second draft was prepared that Patricia Joanna Sahm held a power of attorney from her mother?
For the second one?
At the time the second one was being prepared, were you aware of that?
She didn't. She was revoked, I believe, by the time the second one came to be. It might have been at the first one, too. See,
so when do you believe the power of attorney was revoked?
I can't remember the exact date, but
you would know because you were involved in getting that power of attorney revocation drafted, right?
No.
And what about Mr. Hall? Wasn't he involved in getting that power of attorney?
I don't know. Take his deposition.
Okay.
Are you
on March 28th?
What year?
2023.
And there's a signed revocation for March 28, 2023?
Correct.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize. We need to take a 5-minute break because I see my client shaking and I can't have him have a heart attack. So we'd like a 5-minute break, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. I've told him if he wants a break to ask anytime.
Okay, the time is 10:59 a.m. and we are off record. The time is 11:10 a.m. and we are back on record.
Okay, Mr. Bernstein, the time period I'm trying to get into is before the alleged March 23 revocation of the power of attorney. And I want to talk about any settlement agreements that Miss Garcia was involved in negotiating with Mr. Raymond, whether they contain the name Walter Sahm Trust or not. So with regard to that time period, before the power of attorney was allegedly revoked, were you involved in any negotiations with Patricia Sahm Jr., Patricia Sahm Sr., or anyone else, you personally, regarding settling the foreclosure case?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. And did there come a time where you became involved in any negotiations with anyone directly in an attempt to settle the Patricia Sahm Sr.'s judgment?
The settlement?
Yes, anytime you became involved after the dealings with Mr. Raymond. Well, let me clean that up. As I understand it, the attempts of Miss Garcia to settle the foreclosure case with Mr. Raymond were not successful, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Raymond was never an attorney of record in the foreclosure case, was he?
Well, he became an attorney of record really in the bankruptcy case when the estate entered as replacing Walter for the final judgment.
But he never represented Patricia Sahm, Patricia Sahm Sr. in the foreclosure case.
You'd have to talk to him.
Well, I want to know what you knew. Were you aware? Do you look at the docket yourself of the foreclosure case?
I did.
Okay, and were you aware that Mr. Raymond was an attorney for Patricia Sahm Sr.?
No, because you concealed first for months that Walter had died, and then you failed when we filed a suggestion of death to do anything with the court or change the style of the case to reflect that Walter had died and the interest went to Patricia wholly, which is all against all kinds of rules that I can see as a layman and have reported to authorities. But
so did you know from looking at the docket that my firm represented Patricia Sahm Sr. in the foreclosure?
Objection, also legal conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
You can answer.
Did you understand that from looking at the docket that my firm represented Patricia Sahm?
I did, up until the point that the power of attorney revoked Joanna's powers because she was your real client that you never put before the court for settlement or anything. You never notified the court that you were operating, or any of the litigants that you were operating under a power of attorney for someone else. So we all thought it was Patricia Sahm.
So you weren't aware that the alleged power of attorney, by the way, was allegedly revoked was on 4/13/2023.
Yeah, there's also one earlier.
Okay, there's one earlier than that.
I believe so, and I believe I uploaded it as part of the production.
Okay, and when do you think the date on that was?
I told you on March 28th.
Okay, and so prior to these alleged revocations of the power of attorney, did you?
No, they're factual.
Pardon?
Those are your words, alleged.
Okay.
Factual.
When did you when you looked at the docket prior to March of 2023, you understood that I was the attorney of record for Patricia Sahm, right?
Objection, asked and answered for the 10th time. You can answer.
Can
you repeat the question?
Repeat the question, please.
Prior to March of 2023, you understood that I was counsel of record in the foreclosure case for the plaintiff, right?
Well, no, in March, we found out that the plaintiff was really Joanna, not Pat Sahm. So you had been falsely representing that you represented Pat Sahm after Walter's death to the court, and that you were actually working with Joanna through a power of attorney you claimed you didn't yet even have. Much later, you claimed that.
So you didn't know I was the attorney of record in the foreclosure case prior to the first alleged revocation.
I believe that I knew that you were falsely representing Patricia Sahm.
So you concluded that you concluded
her and Walter.
So you concluded my representation was false.
I did.
Okay.
After talking
Well, don't tell me what your
Oh, okay.
attorneys, don't tell me
Okay.
what your attorneys told you.
Okay.
So then, by May of 2023, did Kevin Hall work with you on preparing a draft settlement agreement?
No.
Okay, why don't we put up as Exhibit 1? She's in Bates.
Oh, wait, on the second settlement, are you asking?
I'm
May-
asking, I'm asking,
Okay.
I'm asking if after you claim there was a valid first revocation of a power of attorney, did you work with Mr. Hall to prepare a draft settlement agreement?
Are you putting it on the screen, sir? Can you please put the document you're referring
I'm
to?
asking him a question. I'll tell you when I put it on the screen.
Oh, I thought you said you were putting it. I'm sorry. That's why I was waiting.
I was talking to Ms. Miller.
I believe I talked to Kevin about it because he was talking to Pat Sahm Sr. first, and then he brought me in to talk to Pat Sahm Sr., where we found out all kinds of stuff about you and what you were up to, and that she had never met you, didn't know you. And so we needed, I think what I was told was we couldn't really settle anything with Patricia Sahm Sr., BFR, or anybody until she had counsel. And I believe that was the discussion, was that she needed to have independent legal representation because she didn't know who you were. She didn't know you were representing her. She didn't know Brad Schraberg was representing. So we told her to get counsel.
So tell me when this happened. So when did you first involve Mr. Hall in meeting with Patricia Sahm Sr.?
Well, I had nothing to do with that.
Go ahead. Answer.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Ms. Garcia?
I said objection to form.
Okay.
What was the question again?
When you said that Mr. Hall contacted Patricia Sahm Sr.
Oh, and when?
Yeah, and when?
Okay, so it's
Can you
my
give me a date? Can you give me a date?
It's my understanding that what happened was Kevin found out once we learned that Patty Jr. and her sister were involved in some kind of criminal thing. It popped up on the thing. Kevin went through the records and found Patty Jr.'s number. He called her and began talking with her, is my recollection. And then they were next to each other, Patty and her mother, and she was on a speakerphone. And he had I don't know how long, but several days, he had talked to them, to Junior. And finally, her mother wanted to be heard since she was listening all of the calls, basically. And she wanted to talk to Kevin. And she began conversing with Kevin about what was going on with the gun, what was going on with you, Schraber. She had never heard that there were settlement offers. She was appalled that 18% interest, called it unchristian. She was appalled about everything her daughter was doing. She thought her daughter was stealing money. She couldn't believe her daughter had taken my kids through bankruptcy. She said her husband be rolling in his grave, which he would, by the way. So Kevin started talking to her, and I think when she wanted to settle it with us, he said, I can't do that. You got to get a lawyer to represent you, or else it will be a void type settlement. And she wanted to get it done right away. Like, I believe she wanted to get her power of attorney out of Joanna's hand because she was appalled by what Joanna, and there's handwritten letters in the record now that show she thinks Joanna's scary, that she is in a satanic relationship where they practiced Santeria. She was scared. She was left with no money. She thought that Joanna was stealing her pension money. She thought she had $200 in her bank account because Joanna was concealing both from her sister and mother that they had $3.5 million in cash in a bank, basically. So they thought they were poor and starving and that the only money was going to come upon the death of Pat Sr. And so when we heard, and none of us knew at that time that there was $3.5 million. Nobody could figure out the motive for what Joanna and you were doing, concealing the proper parties from the estate. But I think when you read the police report we submitted against you, you'll see clearly what we believe.
So this is what Mr. Hall told you from his meetings with Patricia Jr. and Patricia.
Well, I was not.
Were you involved in those conversations?
Yes, and I was involved. She wanted to talk to me, so they conferenced me on, and I did talk to her.
And when did these conversations take place?
I don't have it in front of me.
And were they on the telephone?
Yeah.
And were there any in person?
I met with her in person several times.
So you went to her home?
Correct.
And when's the first time you went to her home?
I don't know the date exactly, but you've got the records log, so you know.
So you went to her home with Mr. Hall?
No.
Did Mr. Hall ever go to her home?
No.
Okay. And so you had these conversations with Patty Sahm Sr. and Patty Sahm Jr. that you've described.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
And
Patty Sahm Jr., just so you know, on the conversations, didn't want to be involved in any way, shape, or form because she thought her sister would use it to further frame her in the criminal gun charge, where we believe also she's being framed as well. But once Joanna knew that her sister found out about the judgment, we believe she went and instigated trouble with her. And her mom was actually going to be a witness for Patty Jr. in the criminal case. And when I said, hey, God, I got to know about that criminal case, what happened? The first thing Senior said was, if Patty Jr. didn't pull the gun on her, I would have. And I said, what? And she goes, Joanna came here looking to start trouble, started attacking her dogs. Joanna's a big bully volleyball player type Amazon person, and Junior's a little brain damaged, little innocent dog walker who takes care of elderly people. Yeah, that we talked about a bunch of things like that.
So how many times did you go meet with Patricia Jr. and Patricia Sahm Sr.?
Probably 10.
Okay. And so
my kids also went.
And you told her that she needed an attorney other than me.
If she wanted to settle, no, we said she needed an attorney, and you were already out of the picture because she had already revoked Joanna's power of attorney, and therefore you had no client at that time. You know that. Come on.
Well, when the power of attorney was revoked, I still represented Mrs. Sahm, didn't I?
No.
Patricia Sahm Sr.?
Yeah, no.
Well, had she terminated me?
She never hired you. Joanna did.
Okay, but I was counsel of record.
Yeah, you were misrepresenting to the court.
I had a power of attorney. You say that was revoked by a competent Mrs. Patricia Sahm Sr., right? You say she revoked her power of attorney.
Correct.
And she knew, did she know, did she tell you she knew she was still the plaintiff in a foreclosure case?
She did not know you were representing her as a plaintiff in the foreclosure.
And didn't you tell her that?
Tell her what?
Didn't you tell her that when she
and she wanted to remove you, and I think they sent you some letters telling you get out, you've been replaced. She's hiring new counsel because she didn't like anything she heard about you, and she didn't know you.
Okay.
And she didn't know Mr. Schraber, who went into the bankruptcy court similarly claiming that the client was Patricia, not Joanna, through a power of attorney.
And you discussed with her that she needed to fire me.
I didn't.
You discussed with her she needed to get a new attorney.
I don't believe I did. I believe Kevin did when he said, you need an attorney, and she didn't want you for sure.
Okay.
So Kevin said, you got to have somebody. So she said, okay, I'll go get somebody to represent me.
And you and Kevin had no involvement in finding that attorney.
Well, I don't know how it came to be that she found Morgan Weinstein, not Amber Patwell. But she found.
Well, how did she get Morgan Weinstein's name?
I'm not sure.
Did it come from Mr. Hall?
You'd have to ask him.
And Mr. Hall's a disbarred New York lawyer, isn't he?
I'm not sure it's disbarment anymore. I don't know how long it was for. But again, ask Kevin Hall.
So Miss Sahm allegedly hired Morgan Weinstein.
Miss Sahm hired Mr. She filled out a retainer with him.
How do you know that?
Because there's copies of it.
How did you get those?
I don't know.
Why do you have copies of?
I think they were put into the court record somewhere. Oh, in the bankruptcy case.
They were put in the record in the bankruptcy case?
Correct.
Are you saying that Mr. Weinstein appeared as counsel in the bankruptcy case?
No.
Are you saying that there were signed agreements between Mr. Weinstein and Mrs. Sahm?
Yes.
Okay.
We uploaded that to you.
Pardon?
It's uploaded in our evidence.
And to your knowledge, no one affiliated with the Bernstein Family Trust or the Bernstein Family Realty LLC had any involvement, including Mr. Hall, had any involvement in the hiring of Morgan and the attempted or hiring of Morgan Weinstein. Is that your testimony?
You'd have to ask those people. No, it's your testimony.
So you have no knowledge about Mr. Hall being involved or not being involved with Morgan Weinstein. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you have no idea
I don't believe so.
Okay. And Mr. Weinstein never appeared in the foreclosure case, did he?
No, because surreptitiously, we believe he was terminated by Joanna Sahm, since her mother didn't ever remember terminating him. And then she wanted to hire him back. I know that, and tried to get him back. And then he wouldn't, and she needed another counsel.
How do you know that?
I don't know, through conversations with people.
What conversation with whom?
I don't know.
So you know about conversations between Joanna Sahm and Morgan Weinstein?
I know that was a call to Morgan Weinstein that was canceling, and it came from a strange number, and it wasn't on Patricia Sahm Sr.'s phone, from what I heard, and she didn't believe she had ever made that call firing him. And I saw some emails, I think it might be with Patty Jr., trying to send her mother's wish to continue him representing.
So Patty Jr. was acting as Miss Sahm's power of attorney, correct? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Did Patty Jr., to your knowledge, ever have a power of attorney?
No.
Okay. And who was involved in preparing any revocation of power of attorney? Do you know?
I wasn't, so I don't know.
You don't know. Was Mr. Hall involved?
I asked Mr. Hall.
Okay. And so did you ever discuss with Patty Sahm Jr. or Patty Sahm Sr. the issue of hiring Morgan Weinstein?
No.
Did they ever tell you they had hired Morgan Weinstein?
Yes, I found that out, that they had hired him.
They told you
I
that?
had nothing. Yeah, I had nothing to do with.
So
No,
in one of your meetings, they told you they hired Morgan Weinstein.
Correct.
Okay, and it was
counsel to talk to my attorney.
And that was at your suggestion that they get some other attorney other than me.
She didn't want to use you. Don't you get that? She thought you were committing fraud on my family and her dead husband. She was stunned that Walter Sahm continued filing pleadings 1 minute after he was dead in court.
Who told her that?
It came out, I think, in their conversations.
With you?
No, with Kevin, I believe.
So Kevin told her all these things. Kevin told her.
You'd have to talk to Kevin. Take
So,
his deposition.
But Kevin was acting on behalf of the Bernstein family Realty
No,
LLC,
I don't believe
right?
so. I didn't. Nobody at Bernstein Family Realty authorized that. Kevin was acting on his own for his own interests, and he found the number for Patty Jr. in the criminal file. He contacted her and started to act on his own. He talked to Patty and her mother without me for, I believe, several days. And then she wanted to talk to me, and I got on the phone with them, and we talked about certain of these things.
So when Mr. Hall was meeting and speaking with Patricia Sahm Jr. and Patricia Sahm Sr., he was affiliated with the defendant in this case, Bernstein Family Realty LLC, wasn't he?
Correct.
Okay. And he is the one who introduced Patty Sahm Jr. to Morgan Weinstein through one of his high school friends, right?
I guess that's your words, not mine.
But you know that.
I don't.
He told you.
I don't know any of that. I just told you. I don't know how Morgan Weinstein came in, who he knows, what he did.
Didn't Mr. Hall
part of it?
Didn't Mr. Hall tell you he was going to find an attorney for the Sahms?
No, he said she needed to find an attorney.
And did he ever tell you? He didn't tell you he was going to take care of that?
He what?
That he was going to take care of finding her attorney.
No, he never told me he was going to take care of it.
And so how do you believe Mrs. Sahm? You have no idea how Mrs. Sahm contacted Morgan Weinstein.
No, I know she had contacted several local attorneys. I don't know how she got to Morgan Weinstein. I wasn't a part of it.
How do you know she contacted several local attorneys?
She told me, and she told me she was trying to get a meeting to find counsel to settle this. She wanted to get it settled. She's the one who wanted the settlement. And she definitely wasn't going to use you because she didn't know you. She'd never met you. And you'd been representing to a court that you were representing her. You never told anybody that it was Joanna who was your client, that we would have to settle with Joanna. You didn't have the proper parties before the court because you were propounding a fraud on the court, in my view.
And you're not a lawyer, right?
No.
Okay. So,
but now you've had lawyers tell that story too, and they are lawyers.
Okay.
Who are all about to expose you for all the fraud. And they're lawyers, not me, which is a lot better, by the way. Right. I think in Inger's pleading, she actually requested the judge to report you.
Okay. And when Mr. Hall was dealing with Ms. Sahm, at any time, was she in a guardianship proceeding?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that? I missed it.
At any time that Mr. Hall was communicating with Ms. Sahm Sr., was she in a guardianship proceeding?
I believe later, after you were contacted by the sheriff, within days, you and Joanna concocted this predatory guardianship, it appears, to silence the witness against you, who could point to you and say, I never met this man. I would have never let him do this. He never consulted with me. He never offered me a settlement. I didn't know that you were offering settlements. She didn't know any of those things because you were representing Joanna. Nobody knew that. Not even the court, not the litigants, proper parties, a dead man and a woman's daughter you were representing. Not the dead man we know you can't represent, but you still seem to think you can.
You don't understand that I was representing Joanna Sahm Sr. through a power of attorney granted to Patricia Sahm. You don't
I
understand
don't know
that.
who Joanna Sahm Sr. is.
No, Joanna, I was representing Joanna Sahm I was representing Patricia Sahm Sr. through a power of attorney held by Joanna Sahm. You don't understand that.
We didn't know that till it was exposed in bankruptcy court, which furthered
Okay.
the fraud you were
So
committing.
let's get
Not
back
only
to
were you representing a dead person, you were now representing what you're calling an incapacitated person through a power of attorney that you didn't disclose to anyone. So neither part, how was I supposed to settle with a dead man and a person who wasn't before the court? It was her daughter.
and that's why
Document. And you never
why
notified anybody that you were operating as an attorney through a power of attorney.
and so that's why no one contacted me, even though I was counsel of record. No one contacted me regarding this settlement in 2023, this proposed settlement, correct?
I believe that's your words again. I'm not agreeing with that.
Okay. So when Mr. Hall was talking to Patricia Sahm Sr., was that at any time after a guardianship had been filed?
One more time, sir.
When at any time that Mr. Hall was communicating with Mrs. Sahm Sr., was it after the guardianship had been filed?
Yeah, I think there were conversations with her after the guardianship was filed, but she wasn't adjudicated incapacitated. I still don't think she has been as of this day. There's been no incompetency hearing where she's been adjudicated.
I didn't ask you that. I asked if Mr. Hall was continuing to speak to her after the guardianship proceeding was filed.
I believe, yeah. Again, ask Mr. Hall.
But and was he negotiating a settlement at that time?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. And and the conversations you described that Mrs. Sahm Sr. related to Mr. Hall, which of those were before the guardianship was filed and which were after?
I don't know. I don't.
And you met with her 10 times, right?
I did.
And how many times did you meet with her before the guardianship was filed?
Probably most of the times.
Well, after the guardianship was filed, did you still meet with her to try to get her to sign a settlement?
I have to look at my notes and figure that out. But
didn't you appear at her house on more than one occasion before she signed the settlement agreement to meet with her?
I did.
Okay. And you had the settlement agreement in your hand when you met with her, right?
I did.
Didn't you bring the settlement agreement to her at her house?
I did on the request of her attorney.
Hold on, time out. I'm sorry. Objection to form time frame, please.
Didn't you? So you met with Mrs. Sahm after the guardianship had been filed, right? At her house.
Yes.
On more than one occasion, correct?
Yeah, most likely.
Okay. And how many times that you met with her did you have a signed settlement agreement? Strike that. A written settlement proposed draft with you?
Once I had a proposed draft that was signed by my family. And then because of location and whatnot, I believe Amber Patwell asked Junior to have me bring it over for her signature after we had just got all our kids to sign, and then scan it and send it to her.
So Amber Patwell
had already discussed it with her. She had read it several times, according to my understanding, before I got there. When I got there, she went through it 2 times. She read it, signed it. I took it over to my house, scanned it, and sent it out.
So explain to me what happened. So after the guardianship was filed, you met with Patricia Sahm uh, at her house, correct?
Correct.
And you did prior to the time you went there. I'm now talking about prior to the time you went there with a written document. Who was present during those conversations with Patricia Sahm Sr.? Was her daughter always there?
Objection. You're to the form. You're assuming facts, not in evidence. He testified previously. He went there with the document one time.
You're making a speaking objection again. Okay. You're making a speaking objection.
Form, sir. Objection form.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You've told me that you went after the guardianship was filed and you spoke with Mrs. Sahm Sr. before you ever brought a proposed or signed settlement agreement to her, right?
Correct.
Okay. Who was present at those occasions?
My son, my wife possibly once or twice, Patty Jr., who didn't want to get involved, obviously, because of the situation she was in with her sister at the time. And nobody. That was it.
Which son?
Danny and Jacob.
So you went there with your wife and two of your sons?
Correct.
On how many occasions did you go there with your wife and two of your sons?
I don't know the number with who.
Okay.
My son was fixing their table because Joanna was letting the house fall apart on her. Wouldn't get the necessary repairs to take care of her. So my son and I fixed a kitchen table that was falling over on her for months that she had asked Joanna, according to her, for months to fix. And then there was a shower door that was literally could have killed somebody. It was hanging off the hook. Again, she had asked Joanna, and so my son came over, helped out, fixed up a few things, and that was about it.
So while you were discussing settlement with Mrs. Sahm Sr.,
I didn't discuss settlement with Ms. Sahm Sr.
You never discussed having a settlement agreement?
The only thing I discussed with her was the amount of money. And we based it off the 2019 settlement agreement, which is the last settlement offer she'd even heard of. And we added in the 3 years of interest at 3.5%, because all of her other costs were covered in the 200,000 2019 document, if you read it.
You negotiated that with her?
I said, well, what I recall was that I said, here's what it would cost for interest, 3 years since the 2019. That's about on the $100,000 note, 10,000. I offered her money to pay her legal bills because she didn't want to pay your bill because she doesn't know you, didn't know you were representing her. She was adamant she would never pay your fees. Let Joanna deal with that, I believe were her words. And I offered her, so we came up with 225 was about what would be due if she was excluding your fees and the 18% interest, and we did it at the rate that was in the note. And she wasn't going to pay the 18 because, like I told you, she thought it was unchristian, unholy. And so that wasn't, even though I offered that, I then said, you know what? My kids have 200 and I think 75,000 in the registry. Do you want that all, even though the number we're at is 225? And she said, I don't want a penny over what's due under the note at the terms of the note. And she was appalled at everything that you had done in adding fees in on her behalf when she never contracted you. So I'd like to see your retainer to show who really signed it. Was it Pat or was it Joanna? And so you're going to have to answer those questions at some point. So I'm perfectly comfortable waiting for your turn. But go ahead. You want to?
So we're talking about your negotiations.
Well, I really didn't negotiate the settlement with her. I negotiated a price that we thought was fair. She had a lawyer who she was settling with. The lawyer, I didn't have conversations with Amber, Patwell, Inger, and Sahm. They had their own settlement conversations without me, and to the best of my knowledge, without Kevin.
And so, you came up with this number. What was the number you came up with to settle?
225.
And you came up with this negotiating with her in her house.
Yeah.
And you had your children there.
I might have had Danny there that day. Yeah.
And your wife was there.
I don't know. I don't think so.
And you had done chores to help her fix her house and her furniture.
Correct.
Okay. And how many times had you gone there, or your family members gone there to do work for her?
Out of the 10, maybe 7.
Okay.
There's a lot of work that Joanna was neglecting. Telling her
and was
any money, by the way. That's what's so scary here.
Was Joanna, I'm sorry, that was Patricia Sahm Jr. present for all of these, for the negotiations you described?
No, like I told you, she didn't want to be around when anything was happening because she didn't want her sister to frame her more than she felt she was already being.
So you were meeting with this 80-plus-year-old woman who was in a guardianship.
She wasn't in a guardianship.
Well, at some point, she was in a guardianship proceeding.
No, she still isn't, as far as we're concerned.
No.
Well, that's still pending litigation.
As far as you're concerned, there was no guardianship proceeding when you were meeting.
Now you're changing it. You said proceeding. First, you said in a guardianship.
There was a proceeding,
okay, but it hadn't been adjudicated, and it still hasn't ever been adjudicated that she's incapacitated.
So you were with this 80-plus-year-old woman at her home with your family, fixing her home and negotiating a settlement, and she had no one else with her.
No.
Objection to the form.
Is that correct?
Objection to the form.
Yeah, I would say that's correct. I wasn't negotiating a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
The settlement was negotiated between her competent counsel, Amber Patwell, and our counsel, Inger Garcia.
And was that done? And so tell me how did Inger strike that? How did Ms. Patwell get retained? Do you have any idea?
How did she get retained?
Yeah, who retained her?
Who retained her? I believe Pat Sahm Sr.
Okay, and how was she located?
I don't know. I never knew her. So
do you know if Mr. Hall had any involvement in that?
Talk to Mr. Hall, but I don't think so.
Do you know if Ms. Garcia had any involvement in that?
I definitely know she did not.
Okay. Did you direct Ms. Garcia to communicate with Ms. Patwell regarding a settlement?
Objection. That calls for attorney-client privilege.
No, it doesn't.
You're asking him about his comments and his communications with me.
With the purpose of communicating it to a third party. Read the evidence code, please. I already made you aware of this the last time you tried this.
Sir,
okay,
I'm just putting my objection on the record like you asked me to. You can go ahead and do what you want. He can answer if he wants. You try to put my objection on the record. I object. That's attorney-client privilege. Go ahead.
What was your question?
Then you follow it. Then you follow it with an instruction not to answer. If you want to assert the attorney-client privilege when it's not founded, don't just make
answer the man's questions. He's having fun fishing. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm talking to you now about what.
Answers questions. I'm not.
Wouldn't know the truth if it hit him in the head.
Mr. Bernstein, I'm trying to get to the truth.
Oh yeah, I know.
And that's what we're here for. And in doing that, I'm trying to find out what you instructed your attorney to communicate to other people, which is not privileged. And I'm trying to do that with regard to Miss Patwell, who comes in during a guardianship proceeding and is allegedly representing the alleged incompetent. So I want to know what you know about how Miss Patwell was located and retained? What do you know?
Well, I think she might have, and I can't speak with certainty, been contacted by Hillary Ho, who is she is part of the Florida court task force on guardianship abuse and elder abuse. And this case, I might have asked her to look for an attorney to help Pat Sr.
Right. And you're involved in that group that deals with that.
No, the task force? No, it's a state task force.
Pardon?
It's a state task force. I'm not.
But you communicate with them and you go on marches with them, right?
With the task force, no.
No, with the people who are protesting alleged guardianship abuse.
Yeah.
Okay. And you email with them, right? You email back.
I do.
Okay. And so you asked somebody who was in that group that protests guardianship abuse.
I might have asked everybody in the group if they
Pardon?
knew it. I might have asked everybody in the group if they knew an attorney.
Okay, so you were helping Patricia Sahm Sr. find an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay, and you asked everybody in the guardianship abuse group who you could get to represent Patricia Sahm Sr.
Correct.
And who did anybody find Miss Patwell for you? Who's the one that gave you Miss Patwell's name?
Objection to the form.
I don't know if they gave me the name or they gave Pat Sahm Sr. the name.
Well, was the name? Who was this person that came up with Miss Patwell at your request?
I believe. I don't know. Hillary Ho.
Hillary, how do you spell the last name?
Hogue.
Okay. And did Miss Ho contact you at any time, letting you know that she recommended Miss Patwell?
Not that I recall.
Did she email you Miss Patwell's name?
Not that I recall.
Did you ever call Miss Patwell at any time and speak to her?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Did Mr. Hall ever talk to Miss Patwell?
I take his deposition. I don't speak for him. I don't know.
Did he ever tell you he spoke to Miss Patwell?
I can't recall, but I don't think so.
And so how did you learn that Miss Patwell had been hired after you recommended that someone go find an attorney for Miss Sahm Sr.?
How did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
I think through Patty Jr. or something.
So Patty,
I'm retained an attorney.
Okay, I'm sorry. His legs are shaking, sir. We need a break.
Okay.
You right where you left off. Thank you.
A 5-minute break, or how long do you need? You're on muted. You're muted. You're muted. I haven't heard a word you've said.
Okay. Make it 10 because I have someone here with a blood pressure kit. I want to test his blood pressure.
Fine.
The time is 11:54 a.m. We are off record.
Let's get Catherine on. It's a document.
Did I already put up 2 exhibits that I wanted in the record?
I'm putting up an exhibit that was produced by your attorney this morning or yesterday? Yesterday. Do you see that? It says subject forward.
Can you make it bigger? A little bigger, please? Can you like zoom it out? You know what I mean? A little more? Okay. That's good. And just scroll slow.
You see, it's subject FW : KRH version BFR Sahm settle with Pat 5/4/23. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. Does this refresh your recollection, or are you aware that Mr. Hall sent you a draft of a settlement agreement on May 4, 2023?
This is a settlement that was never used. This was what he thought should be in a settlement. I know that the attorneys never used any of it in their settlement. Once their attorneys were involved and Amber and Inger were settling, Kevin, me, nobody else had anything to do with it.
Do you remember my question?
Yeah,
What was it?
if I recall this settlement of Kevin's.
Did you recall that on May 4, 23, Mr. Hall sent you the attached settlement agreement, draft settlement agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were talking with Mrs. Sahm at that time, right?
Yeah.
On May 4, 23, right?
Oh, I don't know. That's your words, not mine.
Well, there's a narrative here about a settlement, so I presume.
Well, it's Mr. Hall.
Well, Mr. Hall wouldn't. There's a reference to $225,000. So this must have been after you had negotiated with Miss Sahm, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it's fair to say you were negotiating with Miss Sahm prior to May 4, 23.
Only on a number, not any of the terms of the settlement or anything.
Did you ever negotiate any of the other terms other than the number?
No, none.
Okay,
and none of the terms in this settlement of Kevin's were ever made it into that either, because once there were attorneys involved, they didn't want to talk to Kevin or me or anybody else. They were working with their clients.
Okay, so look on this. The bottom of this page, it says you have to expect a fight, but this should help minimize the fight and answers the question that Attorney Morgan asked, but didn't really want to hear about, why this less than judgment amount is in fact reasonable. So Mr. Hall told you there was going to be a fight on that issue, right?
In his mind, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And let's go through the settlement agreement that you say wasn't used by the attorneys. Now, you knew that I was attorney of record when this document was prepared. Well, strike that. You read this draft settlement agreement when it was prepared, didn't you?
I don't know if I did. I think I called Inger and she said, don't bother, we're not using it. And that was about my understanding. So you part of the settlement, like I said.
So how did you testify that none of these terms were used in the final agreement if you never read it?
How did what?
You testified under oath that none of the terms in this draft were used in the final draft.
Because my attorney told me she didn't use any of it for the final, for the one she did with Amber. That they didn't even use it. So that's all I know.
Oh, so you didn't ever read this?
I don't believe so.
Okay. But you didn't participate in drafting this?
Not one drop.
Okay. And you knew from your conversations with Miss Sahm Sr. that she prepared a letter where she indicated she didn't want me representing her anymore, correct?
Motion.
I'm sorry, sir. Wait, hold on a second. He's pointing to his left arm.
Hold on.
Hold on a second.
Do you have the Caladrill?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we can continue.
Okay, is anyone in the room with you besides your attorney?
Not in this room.
In
my house, yeah. My daughter's in my house. My husband's
right.
in my house. Candy's in the house, but they're not in this room right now.
I'm not asking you questions, Ms. Garcia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me. Sorry.
Well, I second that.
Okay, so you became aware that a document was typed and signed by Patricia Sahm Sr., allegedly, that indicated
What document?
she wanted me.
What document?
It was placed into evidence in court by your lawyer. You mentioned that Miss Sahm wanted me.
This settlement agreement that we're talking
No,
about?
I'm not talking about the settlement agreement now.
This Kevin Hall thing.
Let us finish the question.
Listen to my question, please.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You testified earlier that there was a decision that Mrs. Sahm told you she wanted to terminate me, and there was a document typed up where that was stated, right?
I believe so.
Okay, you were aware that was done, right?
Am I aware now? Yes. I'm not sure what I knew then.
Well, didn't she tell you she was terminating me and sending out a letter or a document?
I don't believe she told me that. I think she was in discussions, from what I reviewed later, with Morgan to terminate you upon her signing him.
So you thought I was terminated based on the conversation with Morgan?
No, I thought you were terminated from the power of attorney. Revocation.
Okay. Even though I was still counsel of record.
Yeah, for a party that didn't know you. Correct.
Well, so you're making decisions about whether I've ever talked to Mrs. Sahm, and whether or not I was attorney. You made those decisions on your own.
No, don't put words in my mouth. She made those decisions.
And so
on
you
her own. And
right.
She was fully competent. She's more competent than you, I believe. And we even heard Judge Burton echo those same remarks when he talked to her. That he thought that he had mild cognitive impairment, like everybody at 80 does. And mild is, to say the least, with Pat Sahm Sr. She got a mind of her own. She's an Irish woman. You don't tell her what to do at all.
Right. So based on your testimony, if she wanted to have terminated me after the power of attorney was revoked, she would have written me, she could have written me, and she would have terminated me, right?
Objection form, speculation.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, based on your dealing with her and your description of her, she told you she wanted to terminate me. Yeah. And she told you she did terminate me, right?
She believes she did.
Okay. And and by
the way, she didn't terminate you. I want to get that clear a little bit, because she said you never represented her. She didn't know you, couldn't pick you out from a lineup, is what she said. But yet she knows every other attorney in her and Walt's life, dating back years. The only two she'd never heard of in her life were you and Brad Schraber. So you weren't representing her in her mind.
So you listened to a woman who was in a guardianship.
No, she wasn't in a guardianship.
In a guardianship proceeding, tell you that she had never dealt with me and didn't know who I was, and you relied on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we realized for ourselves that you had already been running one scheme, filing on behalf of a dead man, not notifying a court that he was dead, and not notifying the court that you were operating and running under a power of attorney that later you claimed you didn't even have at the time. Yeah, we started to put it together, what you were up to. We didn't know the main motive at that point. We still might not, but hopefully the authorities will find out. And that's all I can tell you.
Well, while you were talking,
mind here,
I didn't
settle with her. She got an attorney. She got an attorney to make her settlement. She didn't settle with me. Her attorney and my attorney settled. The settlement, the only thing I did with that settlement was bring it over to her for a signature at the request of the attorneys.
And it's the veracity of that I'm examining right now.
Right. I didn't settle with her.
And I think what you're saying is that while in these 10 meetings with Mrs. Sahm, she made it clear to you she was going to terminate me. as counsel of record, right?
And terminate Joanna, correct.
Okay. So do you know when the first time Mrs. Sahm ever wrote me and suggested that I wasn't her attorney anymore?
I believe it might have been through her attorneys trying to tell you to get out because you had no client anymore.
Do you know when the first time there's any writing where Miss Sahm indicates that I shouldn't be her attorney anymore?
Yeah, she wrote a sworn statement that she had notarized that said she wanted nothing to do with you, didn't know you, and all kinds of things. And
you
were
were
part of a plot with her daughter.
You were involved in the preparation of that, right?
Not a drop.
You didn't talk to her about that at all?
No.
She told you about it, right?
I got a copy of it.
And she gave you a copy of it?
I believe so.
Right.
Somebody did.
Right. When did you get it? From her or from her daughter?
I might have got it from a relative of theirs.
Okay. And you wouldn't have gotten it before it was signed. You got it after it was signed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that document, well, I'll show you the date of that document as when I put it up after this document. You see, this document is May 4 of 2023, this draft, right?
Yeah. Okay, look, he's asking me a question. Look up at the screen. Sorry.
Okay, hold on.
You see the email, and it's a draft 5/4/23, and it's attached. Let's go to the next to the document itself. Okay, so this was prepared by Mr. Hall, your associate in the LLC.
He's a consultant.
You're a consultant for the LLC, right?
He did this on his own.
This was not prepared by Miss Patwell, right?
No.
And it was not prepared by Miss Garcia, right?
I believe no, I don't think they ever used it. I don't know if they read it, but
okay. Well, I'm going to put up the settlement agreement, sir, and we can all compare it.
Okay, good.
You just start, and you'll be able to see what's in there.
Okay.
Your testimony isn't going to trump what's in the documents.
I got it.
Okay, so on May 4th, are you aware that May 4th I was still counsel of record for Miss Sahm?
You were never counsel of record for Miss Sahm, according to Miss Sahm.
According to the court file.
Well, let me ask you this. Who was your client, Miss Sahm or Joanna?
Okay, sir.
See, well, let's ask the question correct. You were never counsel for Pat Sahm Sr. She never retained you.
That's because you believe that. But the court file showed I've been counsel for Mrs. Sahm for years.
No, you've even stated that you were operating under
a power of attorney.
Right.
A power. So you knew
undisclosed power of attorney.
You knew I was counsel of record for Mrs. Sahm in this case, right? On May 4, when this was prepared by Mr.
No, I was aware that she had revoked your power of attorney for Joanna, who was your client. You had been misrepresenting to the court for some period of time, I believe, since Walt's death. And hold on one second. Okay.
So on May 4, when this is done, you know that I am counsel of record for Patricia Sahm Sr. in the foreclosure case, correct?
Yeah. And on May 1st, 2023, I was aware that Amber Patwell was her attorney.
Okay. But not in the foreclosure case.
Well, yeah.
Amber Patwell had not filed a notice of appearance in the foreclosure case.
Oh, that
And
might have
before-
come later, but she was, my understanding was she was representing her in the mental health and the foreclosure.
Assuming that Patricia Sahm Sr. was competent enough to hire Miss Patwell, correct?
Objection call.
No, there was no question of her competency by anybody prior to your filing a petition, which is not a guardianship. And she still has not had an adjudicatory hearing deeming her incapacitated, showing that that whole thing's a big old fat fraud too.
Okay, so let's talk about fat fraud, sir.
Okay.
This settlement agreement, are you aware the first paragraph is exactly the same as what's in the one that was signed?
No.
Are you
Okay.
aware when it says recitals, that's exactly the same font and it's laid out the same way?
I think that's the same as was in the John Raymond. So Kevin might have, and you need to talk to him, taken John Raymond's settlement and put his comments into it. And part of John Raymond's settlement might have fallen into the settlement that Inger and Amber negotiated.
Excuse me, Mr. Sweetapple. Just to help you so we don't sit here and waste an hour and a half on the settlement. Ms. Patwell and I never considered this settlement. Kevin drafted it on his own. The client, your client, former client, never saw it. So you're wasting your time. It was only produced to you in good faith. So you can go down the road.
Okay, that's it.
It's a waste of time. I'm just
Okay,
telling
ma'am,
you.
I'm suspending.
You can ask your question, sir. I'm just trying to help you.
I'm going to suspend the deposition now. I'm going to ask the court to sanction you. I've repeatedly asked you not to coach your client and to tell him your testimony and your
I just
view of the
told
facts.
you all that.
I'm suspending the deposition, sir.
That's ridiculous, sir. We're
Okay.
here and we're ready to move
Okay.
forward. Go ahead
No.
with your question, sir.
No, I'm suspending the
just helping
deposition.
you, sir.
I'm not going to have you help me by coaching
This
the
is what
witness.
he's
It's
trying to
unethical.
do.
All right. Would you please overnight this transcript, please? I'm going to be filing an emergency motion with the court. I want to establish facts without counsel, continuing to coach and obstruct. And I want responsive answers, not these long diatribes. So I'm going to take this all up with the judge. Thank you very much.
We're here ready to continue, sir.
I'm not going to continue.
Okay, so my deposition is being suspended too, I assume?
No, your
me a fraud?
deposition is going to go on, and I trust you're going to have an attorney with you who will make proper objections and comply with the rules with regard to speaking objections that you full well know, and you are intentionally violating time and time again. And the last violation was so blatant and so offensive that I just can't even. I'm losing my patience with you. You're acting so unprofessionally. Thank you very much. I'll see you at 2:00 at your deposition.
Wait, Mr. Sweetapple. So would you like that electronically?
Yes.
And you would
Overnight
like
electronically, please.
Oh.
We do
Okay.
not waive reading. We do
There's
not
no,
waive
this deposition is not completed. I'm
We
suspending
do
it.
not waive reading at this point. For you to present any deposition to a court, I have authority and I'm allowed to read and see it before you present it or use it in any form whatsoever. So we do not waive. We expect a copy. Thank you, Madam
And
Clerk.
I would like
Oh wait,
to
one moment, Mr.
Thank-
Bernstein. So Miss Garcia, you want me to send that to your email address since you want to read
Yes.
it?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
and would you like a copy?
Not
Yeah.
yet until we know the price.
Okay, and Miss Lewis, would you like to order today?
No, I don't need a separate copy. Thank you.
Okay, let me get us off record.
Oh no, don't go off record yet.
Yeah, I'm
Because I wanted to make